We are at Chapter 11. The three rangers sat comfortably around the fire Will had built. The evening meal had been a good one. Crowley had brought venison steak with him, and they had cooked them, sizzling and spitting the flat stones heated in the coals of the fire. Supplementing the meal was boiled potatoes liberally heaped with butter and pepper, and greens that had been blanched quickly in a pot of boiling water. Now nursing mugs of coffee that Holt had brewed, they sat in a companionable silence. Will smiled quietly to himself. He was eager to know the details of his mission, but he knew that there was no sense in hurrying things. Crowley and Holt would tell him in their own time, and nothing he did or said would make them do so any sooner than they had planned to. A few years earlier he would have been in a fever of anticipation, fidgeting and unable to relax, but alone with the other skills of a ranger, he had learned patience as he sat and waited for his superiors to broach the subject. He felt Holt's approving eyes on him too. On him from time to time as his former teacher assessed this newfound quality. Will looked up once, caught Holt's eyes on him, and allowed a grin to touch his features. He was pleased that he was able to demonstrate his forbearance. Finally, Holt shifted his seat on the hard ground and said in an exasperated tone, "Oh, all right, Crowley, let's get on with it, for God's sake." The commandant smiled delightedly at his friend. I thought we were testing Will's patience here, not yours," he said. Holt made an annoyed gesture. "Well, consider his patience tested." Crowley's smile slowly faded as he gathered his thoughts. Will leaned forward, eager to hear the details of his new assignment. He'd spent the past few days doing his best to suppress his curiosity, and now that the moment was here, he felt he couldn't wait another second. He'd been racking his brain, wondering what the assignment might involve, and had come up with several possibilities, most of them based on his experience in Scandinavia. Crowley's first words, however, instantly dispelled all of them. "We appear to have a problem with sorcery in the north," he said. Will sat back in surprise. "Sorcery?" he asked, his voice pitched a little higher than he had meant it to be. Crowley nodded. "Apparently," he said, laying stress on the word. Will looked from him to Holt. His former teacher's face gave nothing away. "Do we believe in sorcery?" he asked Holt. The older man gave a small shrug. 95% of cases that I've seen have nothing but mumbo-jumbo and trickery," he said. "Nothing that couldn't be solved by a well-placed arrow. Then there's perhaps another 3% that involves mind domination and manipulation of a weaker mind by a stronger, the sort of control that Morgoth exercised over his wargals." Will nodded slowly. Morgoth, a former baron who had rebelled against the king, had led an army of Eastern warriors who were totally bound to his will. A further 1% comprises the sort of mass hallucinations that some people are capable of creating, Crowley put in. "It's a similar case of mind control, but one that causes people to see or hear things that aren't really there." There was a moment's pause. Again, Will looked from one to the other. Finally he said, "That leaves 1%. The two older men nodded. "I see your capacity for addition has improved," Holt replied, but then went on before Will could comment. "Yes, as you say, it leaves 1% of cases." "And you're saying they're examples of sorcery?" Will asked, and Holt shook his head doggedly. "I'm saying we can't find a logical explanation for them," he said. Will shifted his seat impatiently, looking to pin his former teacher down one way or another. "Holt," he said, holding the bearded ranger's gaze steadily with his own, "do you believe in sorcery?" Holt hesitated before replying. He was a man who dealt in facts all his life. His life's work was dedicated on gathering facts and information. Uncertainty was an anthem to him. Yet, in this case, "I don't believe in it," he said, choosing his words carefully, "but I don't disbelieve in it either. In those cases where there seems to be no cause or logical explanation, I am prepared to keep an open mind on the subject, and I think that's probably the best position we can take," Crowley interrupted. "I mean, there is obviously an evil force that influences our world. We've all seen too many examples of criminal behavior to doubt it. Who's to say that there isn't the occasional person with the ability to summon that force or channel it to his own use. However, Holt said, remember that we're talking about one case in 100, and even then we're saying it may or may not be the real thing, if the real thing even exists. Will shook his head slowly, then took a deep draught of his coffee. I'm getting confused here, he said at length. Holt smiled grimly. Just keep one thing in mind. There's a better than 90% chance that the case we're dealing with here isn't sorcery. It just appears to be. Hold on to that thought and keep an open mind for the rest, all right? Will nodded, letting out a deep breath. Fine, he said. So what are the details of this case anyway, and what do you want me to do? Crowley gestured for Holt to go ahead with the briefing. The bond between master and pupil was still strong, he knew, and would facilitate a concise briefing with less chance of misunderstanding or confusion. These two knew each other's minds. Very well, Holt began. In the first place, we're talking about Norgate thief. Norgate? Will interrupted, surprise evident in his voice. Don't we have the ranger assigned to that thief? Yes, we do, Holt agreed, but he's known in the area. He's recognized. People are scared and confused, and the last person they'll talk to at this stage is a ranger. Half of them think we're sorcerers ourselves, he added grimly. Will nodded. He knew that to be true. But won't they distrust me if I turn up there, he asked. After all, they may not know me, but I am a ranger. You're not going as a ranger, Holt told him. You're going undercover. That piece of information succeeded in stopping the barrage of questions Will was about to unleash. To tell the truth, he was a little taken aback by the news. He took great pride in being a ranger and enjoyed the respect that the position gave him. People were nervous of rangers, it was true, but there was undeniable prestige that attached to members of the corps as well. Doors opened for rangers. Their opinions were sought and respected by the knights and barons of the realm, even on occasion by the king himself. Their skills with their chosen weapons was legendary. He wasn't sure if he wanted to pull all that aside. He wasn't sure that without the aura of being a ranger to bolster his confidence, he could actually handle a difficult and dangerous mission. And already this mission sounded as if he were going to do both those things. We're getting ahead of ourselves, Crowley said. Let's get the big picture out of the way before we start going into details. Good idea, Holt said. He gave Will a meaningful look, and the young man nodded. He knew that now was the time to listen without interruption. All right, Norgate thief is rather unique in the kingdom, insofar as, in addition to Castle Norgate, the centre of the fief there is an additional castle in a shire right at the north. As Holt was speaking, Crowley unfolded a map of the area on the ground between them, and Will came onto one knee to study it. He could see Holt was right. He touched the map where a castle was indicated, virtually on the kingdom's northern border. Castle MacDowell, he muttered, and Holt nodded. It's more a fortress than a castle, he said. It's a little low on luxurious and high on strategic position. As you can see, he took one of his black arrows from the quiver beside him and used it to point on the rugged mountains that divided Ireland from its northern neighbours. Picta. It's placed so that it dominates the controls that MacDowell passed through the mountains. He paused, watching the younger man as he took in the situation, his eyes intent on the map. Finally, Will nodded, and Holt continued. Without Castle MacDowell, we'd have constant forays from the Scotty and wild tribe who control the southern provinces of Picta. They're raiders, thieves, and fighters. In fact, without MacDowell, we'd be hard-pressed to keep them out of the northern fief entirely. It's a long way north, and it's not easy travelling for an army in winter, particularly when the bulk of our troops are from the southern fiefs and not used to the extremes of weathers that you find up there. Nodding to himself, Will sat back from the chair. The picture was imprinted on his memory now. He shifted his gaze back to Holt as the older man continued. So you can understand why we get a get a tad anxious when anything seems to upset the natural balance of things in Lawgate Fief, he said. Will nodded. When Lord Siren, the commander at McDowell, was struck down by a mysterious illness, we were understandably concerned. That concern grew when he stated to hear wild rumors of sorcery. Apparently, one of Siren's ancestors some 100 years back had a falling out with a local sorcerer. Holt sensed the question on Will's lips and held up a hand to stop it being asked. We don't know. Could have been mind control, could have been a charlatan, or maybe he was the real thing. It all happened over 100 years ago. As I say, so there's very little hard evidence and a lot of anecdotal hysteria involved. As far as all the accounts of the matter go, he was a genuine dyed-in-the-wool sorcerer who had been feuding with Siren's family over a period of hundreds of years. The most recent appearance was the end of a long line of clashes. Bear in mind, we're dealing with myth and legend here, so don't expect too much sense. What happened to the sorcerer? Will asked, and Holt shrugged. Nobody knows. Seems he struck Siren's ancestor down with all manners of mysterious ailments. Naturally, the healers couldn't identify or treat any of them. They never can when they think sorcery is involved, he said with a despairing note in his voice. But then a young knight from the household took it upon himself to rid the province of the sorcerer. In accordance with all the conversations of such myths, he was pure of heart, and his nobility of character let him overcome the sorcerer and drive him out. He didn't kill him, Will put in, and Holt shook his head. No, unfortunately they never do. It leaves legends like this room to rise up again over the years, as this has done. The current situation is that Siren, some 6 weeks ago, was out riding when he was suddenly struck down from his horse. When his men reached him, he was blue in the face, frothing in the mouth, and screaming in agony. His men got him home, and the healers were completely baffled by the condition. All they could do was sedate him to relieve the pain. He hasn't improved since, and he's hovering on the brink of life and death. If they wake him to feel him or give him water, and pain hits him again, and he begins screaming and frothing all over. Yet if they leave him sedated, he grows weaker and weaker as the time passes. Let me guess, Will put in, as Holt paused. These symptoms were identical to the ones his ancestors suffered in the legend. Holt pointed a finger at the younger man. Got it in one, he said, which of course gave rise to the rumours that Melkerman was back. Melkerman? Will asked. The original sorcerer, Crowley put in. Nobody knows where the rumours started, but there have been other manifestations as well. Lights in the forest that disappear when anyone approaches, strange figures seen on the road at night, voices heard in the castle, and so on. The sort of things calculated to scare the living daylights out of country people. The local ranger, Marilyn, has been trying to get hold of more information, but people have clammed up. He did hear some rumour about a sorcerer living deep in the forest, and the name Melkerman was used, but exactly where he was living he couldn't find out. Who's commanding the castle with Siren while Siren is out of action? Will asked. Holt nodded, appreciating the question. Will had an ability to cut through the externals of a matter and get to the heart of the problem. Siren's son, Orman, is nominally in charge, but he's not really a soldier. According to Meleron's report, he's something of a scholar. I'm more interested in studying history than guarding the kingdom's borders. Fortunately, Siren's nephew, Kieran, is also there, and he's taking practical command of the garrison. He's more down to earth. He was raised as a warrior, and apparently he's a popular leader. He can handle things for the time being, Crowley said, but if Siren should die, then we have the problem of succession, and Orman, a weak, incapable leader, will inherit the position. That could destabilize the whole situation and leaves us vulnerable to an attack from the north. That's something we have to avoid at all costs. McDowell is too important strategically for us to take any risks. We'll tugged thoughtfully at his chin for a few seconds. I see, he said finally. So what do you want me to do? Go up there, Crowley replied. Get to know the locals. Find out as much as you can. See what you can get about this Melkman character. See whether he really exists, or whether people are just imagining things. Gain their confidence. Get them talking. Will frowned. Crowley made it all sound so easy, he thought. That's easier said than done, he muttered. But Holt replied with just the ghost of a smile. It'll be easier for you than for most, he said. People like to talk to you. You're young. You have a fresh-faced, innocent look that disarms them. That's why we chose you. They'll never suspect you're a ranger. So what will they think I am? Will asked, and now the grin finally broke through on Holt's face. They'll think you're a joggler, he said. A jongler? A jongler. A jongler. We're going to go with jongler. Right. I'd like to thank you very much for listening to read up to chapter 11. If you'd like to listen to me read chapter 12, and then please stay posted. Hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.